Hi, my name's Dr. Emma. I'm a dermatology doctor and I'm the co-founder of the House of Medics. So, of course, everybody knows what's broken the internet this week. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock in the face because Chris Rock said something about his wife not having any hair. We've all seen the videos. We all probably have our opinions on it, but that's not what I'm here to talk about, frankly, because it's none of my business. And as much as possible, I try not to talk about things that aren't my business. However, there was no way I was going to let the opportunity to talk about hair loss go by. Like I mentioned, I'm a dermatology doctor. I do have an interest in hair. And I think that this is a great opportunity to bring more awareness to alopecia and how it affects people. So I'm going to talk about what alopecia is, a few of the different causes, how it affects people, and specifically how it affects Black women, and there's certain types of alopecia that are maybe more common in Black women. So I'm just going to get started. So alopecia actually is not a diagnosis. A lot of people don't know this. It's just a medical term that literally describes hair loss. You know, it's like saying chest pain. It doesn't give you a diagnosis, doesn't give you a cause. It's just a descriptive term that literally means hair loss. And with most things in medicine, there are several different causes of hair loss. So some of you may have heard of alopecia areata, which is an autoimmune type of hair loss, which usually causes patchy hair loss on the scalp, often seen in younger people, but not necessarily. You've got alopecia totalis, which is when all the hair on the scalp is lost due to this same alopecia areata, the autoimmune process. You've got alopecia universalis, where the patient has no hair anywhere on the body. So that's eyebrows, pubic hair, all their hair is lost. And then you've got other things like telogen effluvium. That's what people sometimes refer to as, post-stress hair loss. So that's often what we see in maybe women who have just finished having a baby and they experience hair loss, or maybe people who have had a serious illness and then get hair loss. So we've actually seen quite a few cases of telogen effluvium following COVID, this pandemic, or maybe you've got people who go through a stressful or significant period in their life, maybe losing a loved one or something like that. They can get hair loss, and that's what's called telogen effluvium. I'm sure many of you know that everything in medicine that could be described quite simply often does have quite long and complicated names. So yeah, telogen effluvium sounds very long and complicated, but actually it's just usually hair loss following some sort of significant event. And then when we talk about scarring types of hair loss, you have things like CCCA, which stands for centrifugal cicatricial alopecia. Yes, I know many words, but I will talk about that one a bit more. You've got things like traction alopecia, frontal fibrosing alopecia, lichen planopilaris, so many different types of hair loss, and they're all debilitating to different degrees depending on the woman. Or the man that's affected. Obviously it can affect both sexes, and also just depending on how it's managed and the significance of that person's hair has to them. Now, in particular, I am going to talk about hair loss in Black women because I am a Black woman, because Jada Pinkett-Smith is a Black woman, and because often I think this is quite a misunderstood area for a lot of people who maybe don't understand much about hair in Black people, or who know people who have been affected by alopecia and don't really know how to deal with it. And I say this because even, as a dermatology doctor, my colleagues have often said, they really don't know how to discuss hair loss when Black patients walk into their clinic, because, even the way we describe our hair, the kind of products we use, the different things we do to our hair is actually, if you're not within that community, it can seem, very distant and something that's quite difficult to get your head around. So I'm only going to talk about a few different causes of hair loss in Black women in this video, of course, because I can't cover everything, but probably a few causes that I should definitely speak about that are probably the most common would be CCCA and traction alopecia. So CCCA stands for centrifugal cicatricial alopecia, and that sounds like such a mouthful, I know, but really the words in the name describe what it is. So central, meaning that it starts in the middle of the scalp. Centrifugal, meaning that it starts from the middle and works outwards, and cicatricial, meaning that it's a scarring alopecia. And when we talk about scarring alopecia, that means that once the scalp is scarred, the hair isn't going to go back from the scalp that's already got that scarring process going on. Now, CCCA is the most common scarring hair cause of alopecia in black women, and it is, reasonably common. So, us as clinicians and us that have, female family members, and sorry, again, it could be male as well, us that have family members or friends that may be suffering from hair loss, we should know about this condition because it is reasonably common, like I said. Now, CCCA used to be referred to as hot comb alopecia, meaning that the general consensus was that this is hair loss that black women get because of all the stuff we do to our hair. So they used to say that if you braid your hair, if you use hot combs and straighteners, you use heat on your hair, if you do relaxers, if you dye your hair, you're automatically more at risk of CCCA. So then when a patient would present to a doctor with hair loss, and if they were to diagnose CCCA, the doctor's response would be, well, you've got this hair loss because of all the things that you do to your hair, so stop doing those things to your hair, and the hair that's lost isn't going to grow back. And they may try other treatments and, of course, offer certain things, but in essence, that would be the response to the hair loss. Now, as time has gone on and as more research has been done, we now know that actually there probably isn't a very strong link between getting CCCA and what a patient does to their hair. And this is huge. This is really important because for so many years, people with this condition have been told your hair is lost because of all the stuff you've done to it in the past. But actually we're figuring out that probably, is not that much related to the things they've done in the past. And automatically that has shifted, the blame or the onus from the patient to medical science and what we need to do in order to treat it. So that research that is still ongoing with regards to the cause of CCCA is so key, and for me as a dermatology doctor it's something that I'm eagerly awaiting. I can't wait to see more data for us to find out more about what causes it. It is very likely that there is a genetic component because, there are cases where you can see that it's inherited from one family member to another throughout the generations. They've also been able to identify genes that are associated with CCCA. So if you're someone that's interested, PADI3 genes, I believe, are associated with CCCA. And we've also found out that actually the genes that we find in people with fibroids, the genes that we find in people who are more likely to get keloids, are upregulated in the scalps of people with CCCA. So there must be some genetic component. And like I said, research is ongoing and it's an exciting time for the scientific community in terms of what we're going to find out about CCCA. Like I mentioned, CCCA is a scarring form of hair loss. So once the hair has been lost, that area of scalp is not going to be able to grow hair back. So it's really important that doctors actually identify what this condition is and start treatment as soon as possible. In terms of the treatments that are available, they're not, they're not the greatest treatments, and because, like I said, there's still so much research to be done, but treatments definitely are available. So if you have been diagnosed with CCCA, get in touch, make sure you see a dermatologist, and start treatment as soon as possible. Another form of alopecia that's quite common in black women that I must touch on is traction alopecia, which is literally the medical term for losing your edges, basically. And traction alopecia is caused by placing traction on the scalp. So you put pulling forces on the scalp, and that causes inflammation and eventually leads to hair loss. So traction alopecia is very much related to what we do with our hair as black women and black men. And of course, it's not exclusive to black people by any means. We often see traction alopecia in maybe people who wear turbans as well, because the pressure, the tension placed on the scalp from the tight turban could cause alopecia. And even Caucasians who slick their hair back or maybe wear their hair in tight ponytails are at risk of traction alopecia as well. So it's definitely not something that's exclusive to black women. However, the risk is high because we love doing braids, weaves, relaxers, all the different things we do to our hair increases the risk of traction alopecia. The reason that I don't stop talking about traction alopecia is because it is just so common for us to get our hair done and then complain, oh, my hair hurts. So I love braids. I have braids in my hair a lot of the time. Obviously, I don't at the moment. But, the number of times I can recall not now obviously because I know better, but in the past, the number of times I've had my hair done and my scalp hurts. Or, you know, you get those little bumps after you've had your hair done, those little pustules, you know, those bits that, you know, they just feel tight, and then, you know, when you do your hair and then your neck is like pushing forward like this. It's so wrong. Like it increases your risk of traction alopecia so much. And I know that we all know aunties that don't have any edges left. Let's be honest. We've all got, you know, maybe ourselves or sisters, mothers, aunties, friends, and their edges are gone, and that is because of traction alopecia. So I am, you know, the biggest advocate for improving hair care practices. You know, we love to have our hair slick, we love gelling down our edges, we love it when the braids look neat, but really, is it worth losing your edges, sis? I'm not sure. It's something that we need to think about a lot more. The key thing with traction alopecia is, in early stages, it's reversible. So, you know, you get that tight hairstyle. If you take it out, you know, I say to people, if you got your hair done, it's hurting. If you need to take paracetamol, that means it's too tight, just take it out. It's not worth the risk. So let's say you get your hair done, it's tight, or maybe you've noticed that you've already got signs of traction alopecia. If you then start to give your hair a break and give it the care and attention it needs, that hair often will grow back. It's not going to grow back overnight. It's going to take time, but it usually will grow back. The problem is with traction alopecia, if you continue to allow the hair to be inflamed, you continue to expose your scalp to that tension, those pulling forces, eventually the alopecia will become scarring, and then of course it's irreversible. Anything that scars the scalp will not allow hair to grow back in the area that has scarred. So it's really, really, really important that we take the responsibility to not abuse our scalp by allowing these tight hairstyles. Apart from tight hairstyles, I must also comment that doing lots of things to your hair increases the risk of traction alopecia as well. So let's say some people, when they do braids, they want it to look tight, so maybe they'll relax their hair and then the next day they'll braid it. Or maybe they dye their hair, then they relax it, then they braid it. That's honestly a recipe for disaster. The more you manipulate the hair, the more you expose it to chemicals and things like that, the more at risk you are of causing hair loss. So it's really important that we take these things into consideration and really understand, you know, how best to treat our hair. We need to be gentle with it if, you know, we want to keep it and hold on to it. Now, of course, Will Smith storms on stage. He slaps Chris Rock in the face. Whether it's real, whether it's staged, I don't know. Like I said, it's not my business. But it does highlight, you know, maybe, like I said, I don't know what happened. It's not my business. But it does highlight what maybe Jada Pinkett-Smith has been going through. Is it that she has been really troubled by her alopecia and that's why her husband reacted in that way? Possibly. And if it's not the case, I know that it's certainly the case for many women. Of course, and you know, a lot of people describe their hair as their crown. You know, it plays a big role in your outer appearance, in your social interactions. So losing hair can be extremely traumatic. It can affect people in so many different ways. It can affect their self-esteem. It can affect, you know, even their working relationships. It can affect, you know, the things that they do and the things that they want to achieve. So definitely, I want more awareness with regards to hair loss to be available, and for just the community as a whole to understand, you know, how much it means for hair to be lost. And I can speak specifically about the Black community because I know, you know, how much we talk about, oh, this person has good hair, this person has bad hair. You know, I know how much people can be affected by hair loss, especially within the UK, when I feel like a lot of NHS doctors maybe don't know how to address hair loss in the most appropriate and helpful way for a lot of Black women. So I really hope that this video goes on to raise some awareness. Really try to maybe look at it from the point of view of, you know, some of these women that are suffering with this. If you are someone that's suffering with hair loss, please know that there are, you know, support groups available. There are different, you know, places you can seek help, and maybe associations where you can find other women who've suffered with it, who can also share tips, and, you know, so that you can have that fellowship aspect and feel supported. And also there's lots of information out there. The British Association of Dermatology has information on it. I myself have written a leaflet about Afro textured hair, and some of the causes of hair loss. There's so much information on the internet, so please get clued up. Understanding more will empower you, having that increased knowledge. And if you think you're suffering from hair loss and you are yet to get a formal diagnosis or get help, please do see your GP. Like I said, some hair loss, if caught in the beginning stages, is reversible. So see your GP. If they need to refer you to a dermatologist, they will. And just be proactive. Don't think that you need to sit at home and just allow it to happen to you. You can be proactive because treatments do exist and they often do work. So my name is Dr. Emma. I've spoken about hair loss. I've given a brief explanation of a few different causes of hair loss. I've spoken about hair loss in Black women, and I hope that I have given some context into how it affects people and what to do if you need help. Thank you for watching.